Hey, what's going on, Trojan family? Welcome back to the Salute to Troy podcast here on the LAFB network. Thank you, as always, for making this a part of your day. Joined again by my man, the Madman. Excited, as always, to be on with him, Tim, the coach. Everyone will be in unison throughout the season. So excited that all of us can just bring you guys USC Trojans content. But first and foremost, Madman, how are we doing on this fine evening?
Doing great, Rye. Always fun getting to hang. Look, what more can I ask for? I get to hang out with you, and we get to talk Trojan ball. I mean, come on, it's the ultimate double-double.
Beautiful double. Love that. The daily double.
The daily double.
Daily double. So talking today, quarterback Jayden Maiava. We don't want to say for sure foregone conclusion he's starter, but 98% would lead, I think, either of us to agree he will be the starter for the Trojans. But hey, Husan Longstreet's looked really good in spring camp and whatnot. But for now, we're saying Jayden Maiava is the starter. And, looking at the Big Ten, Madman, it's interesting to kind of see. I've seen his ranking kind of all over the place, different outlets where they have him. I've seen a lot of people say like, well, he just doesn't have that much experience, only 4 games. I get that. However, everyone forgets this guy was the Mountain West Freshman of the Year, played an entire season as a freshman, just happened to be in a little bit lesser of a conference, but everyone kind of glosses over that season just because he's only been 1 year with USC in those 4 starts, where he went 3-1 down the stretch. But let me just ask you before I even we're going to talk a little bit of rankings and kind of where we put them, but just what's your summation, or how are you feeling, I guess, in July about the idea of Jayden Maiava leading the Trojans in 2025?
Right. It's a really good question.
I think we all kind of feel like this.
Yeah. No, I mean, if I'm being completely honest with you, it gives me a little bit of anxiety. I think there's sort of a roller coaster element here, because, and I think this is why this conversation is so fun and nuanced. And I think, we'll get into it because, there's ebbs and flows with him. The highs can be really high. The lows can be really low. And so this is all about the regulation of it all, and I think in terms of physical talent, I think the arm talent is, undeniable, really, in terms of his ability to make all the different types of throws, the velocity, the zip, the spiral, really good mechanics on his ball. So, the arm talent is absolutely significant. He can obviously run. He's not a running quarterback per se, but certainly mobile enough to be dangerous as a runner, but also even more dangerous as a guy who can move the pocket, extend plays, and then go off platform and make significant plays down the field. So physically, it's all there. The question, I think, for all of us in many senses is the mental aspect of the game. And is he going to be able to really get that PhD level of understanding of a Lincoln Riley playbook, of his version of the air raid? Is he going to be able to go through his progressions? Is he going to be able to kind of stand in the pocket, take hits, but also deliver the ball with the right zip and the right accuracy? And is he going to be able to kind of stay in the moment, play over play, be unflappable on the road in these hostile environments and whatnot? So I think physically it's all there. I think the question is everything that comes with the physicality of the position in terms of the cerebral aspects, the leadership aspects, the emotional aspects. I think that's kind of the big question. So, I think you're excited. It's almost like, going on like a scavenger hunt or like, an adventure. You do a lot of camping, right? So it's like, getting out there, doing some big hike or some big, trek, wilderness trek. You're excited. You're exhilarated. You're also petrified. And I think that's really Jayden Maiava 2025 USC quarterback story. It's like a wilderness trek.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Like, I think there's a lot of anxiety for everyone just because of everything you said. Like, there's so much arm talent there and physical ability, but it's just, what are the mistake plays? How big of mistakes are those going to be? Is it a poor incompletion, or is it a pick six that we saw happen last year? Unfortunately, I think that Texas A&M game, Madman, like, I loved that juxtaposition of how his season was, because you could argue at halftime, Lincoln Riley was like in the transfer portal. Like, all right, we're making a move in the portal like this offseason because, 3 picks in the first half, the offense couldn't do anything. And the fact that what he did in that second half to stay in the moment, to stay leading the team, and obviously, led the team to that incredible comeback win on the game-winning drive in an under 2-minute drill. Like, that's the quarterback you're like, okay, this is gonna be a great season. But like, are you gonna get that first half quarterback? So much anxiety. You hope that a full offseason kind of being the deemed starter, if you will. Lincoln Riley has said it's going to be a QB competition, but he's obviously getting more reps with the ones, can get him to that. So I'm excited. I think, I think he's really, I didn't even ask you this. I did a little thing. So let me ask you real quick before we kind of get into rankings. Did you think it was interesting or a non-starter at all, the fact that at Big Ten Media Day, Jayden Maiava is not one of the players attending with Lincoln Riley, right? Like, so I wouldn't say very rarely, but specifically with USC, a quarterback not being one of the three players there. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I'm just curious your thoughts. Do you think it's a non-story? Do you think it's kind of like an interesting little tidbit there?
No, I think it's a non-story, Ryan, with you. I agree actually with Lincoln Riley's approach here, because I think you have to sort of cater the media to the player. You can't cater the media to the position. Yep. And I think that's really hard to do when you're the quarterback of USC and you're sort of expected to be, there's sort of an inherent bias with all of us as, folks that cover the team or are fans of the team or alums of the school or what have you, that the quarterback of USC has to look a certain way, and the quarterback of USC has to be very gregarious and comfortable with the media. And so you don't want to sort of cater to the position. You want to cater to the player. And I think going into this season, I think there's a lot of questions about Maiava, exactly as we're talking about. I don't think Lincoln Riley wants to put more pressure on him, having to sort of answer those questions and get inside his head leading into fall. And I also think, truthfully, I don't know if Lincoln Riley wants to sit there and answer a lot of questions about, hey, Lincoln, last year wasn't a great year for you coaching quarterbacks, and you're known as coaching quarterbacks. Like, how are you going to respond this year? So I think in a lot of ways, it was the right thing to do. It was the strategic thing to do to not have him there. But is it some bigger issue about like his ability to be a leader in the locker room or his ability to galvanize the team? No, absolutely not. And the one other thing, Rye, I'll just add, we talk so much in society about the power of the first impression, right? Mm-hmm. But I think in the case, it's been a tale of two cities, if you will, these last two seasons, in the power of the last impression with the USC quarterback. Like, think last year, Miller Moss's game, in terms of the bowl game, and he blows up in the 6 touchdowns, and everyone's like, this is Miller Moss's team. He's the franchise. He's the leader. He loves USC. True Trojan. We're so happy. He's got the keys to this kingdom. And there was such a positivity around Miller Moss in the offseason because of the last impression. And now, to your point with Maiava, terrible, horrific first half, iconic second half. And now that's the power of the last impression. We're like, well, do we get the first half guy? Do we get the second half guy? Which version of Maiava do we get? So I find it so funny, right? We talk so much in society about the power of the first impression. These last 2 years with the USC quarterback, at least for the 9 months in the offseason, it's been the power of the last impression.
Yeah, 100%. And, rightfully so, I guess. It's the last thing we see and the last thing we can see for literally 9 months. So,
exactly.
All right. So, couple different rankings I'll throw at you. So Josh Pate, I love Josh Pate. I think most USC fans enjoy him. I know he's more of an SC guy, but I think he's fairly fair. He came out with his Big Ten rankings about a month ago, probably. And he puts, I'll just rattle these to you. I know you don't have them in front of you, Jamal, but he puts Maiava at 7, and this is within the Big Ten. So he has Drew Aller 1, Julian Sayin 2 with Ohio State, Dante Moore 3 with Oregon, Damon Williams with Washington 4, Luke Altmaier 5, and then Dylan Raiola with Nebraska 6. Now EA Sports, the great college football game, just dropped. I don't know if you were a gamer growing up or still.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Played this game growing up. I don't play it really anymore, but one of my favorite games of all time. I used to play with Colorado State, Bradley Van Pelt, Cecil Sapp. Just a little shout out to the Rams over there. Chad Savage, shout out. Their rankings, so just on their rating scale, they also have Drew Aller, number 1. They have Luke Altmaier 2, Nico Iamaleava at 3, which I think is more fair than Pate's. That's just me. Fernando Mendoza at 4 with Indiana now. Dylan Raiola at 5, and then Maiava at 6. So 6 instead of 7. So my question to you, I guess, would be, where do you see Maiava ranked within the Big Ten?
Yeah, Ryan, this is also another such a loaded question because I think a lot of these rankings, if you just go off of productivity on the field, right? Like, let's take everything aside. In terms of pure productivity, you could argue Maiava is top 4 in this conference or higher, just off of productivity, right? Like Drew Aller, obviously, multi-year starter, took a team to the college football playoff, took them deep, has had, some great moments, has had some tough moments, but there's a really nice body of work there. I think Fernando Mendoza has done some really terrific things on a depleted Cal team. That 1 year, right, where he almost beat SC, in Memorial Coliseum, up north, that 50-49 game. It was the Gentry tip on the 2-point conversion a couple of years ago. But he's put a really nice body of work together. And then when you think about Nico Iamaleava, as a true freshman taking a team to the college football playoff, granted, the stats may have been a little bit on the pedestrian side and a little bit inflated with some of that earlier competition. But, the resume of taking a team to a college football playoff in the SEC as a first-year starter is very, very significant. I think you would have to slot Maiava right there, in that group of 4, considering he was a conference player of the year, conference rookie of the year, his first year as a starter. So, in that regard, he's sort of top 4. But the way these rankings work, obviously, is I think you put guys that have a decorated resume as sort of one category, and then guys that maybe haven't proven it on the field, but that you just believe have a very high ceiling, and then guys that haven't really proven it yet, but you don't necessarily believe the ceiling is that high. And I think for a lot of the national media, Maiava, unfortunately, is in that third group. I think that right now everyone's got Aller from sort of incumbency. It surprised me that Julian Sayin is so high on these lists, even though he hasn't, taken a snap.
Yeah.
Everyone's just sort of assuming just because you're quarterback of Ohio State and Ryan Day and Jeremiah Smith that you're just going to kind of go and be fine. So that's interesting to me. Dante Moore, being so high is, again, very interesting. I mean, he was sharing time at UCLA 2 years ago. That was a very rough true freshman season, right, at UCLA. I know that well.
Yeah.
So you can tell that if this was just productivity on the field, I think Maiava would be top 4. But when you're sort of taking into account the potential, you look at Underwood from Michigan, he's ranked higher than Maiava. He hasn't taken a snap yet. So I find it to be very interesting. But I think, again, this feels like a hedge because I think the best version of Maiava is potentially a top 3, top 4 quarterback in the conference. And I think the worst version of Maiava is like 11th or 12th in the conference. And so everyone is just saying, okay, I'm just going to hedge and put him somewhere between 6 and 8. And I think that's kind of where we're seeing the rankings lay out. I will say one thing before handing it back over to you. The guy who I think is actually going to be the unsung superstar potentially of this conference is going to be Williams from Washington. He reminds me of Kyler Murray 2.0 right now. That kid's going to surprise a lot of people this year.
Yeah. No, he's a great one. Again, just we haven't seen a ton because he was kind of that, not necessarily wildcat, but had specific packages for him last year with Washington. But no, I actually have. I think I can't remember if we talked about this when we did the LA football show and talking Rams Chargers, but like I cannot put someone that has not played a down.
Right.
They're at the bottom. So Bryce Underwood's at the bottom. Julian Sayin's down at the bottom, just because you got to at least play some downs. And then I'm also doing my rankings based on college football, not NFL mock drafts. This is not like who I'm taking next year in the draft. Like this is this college season. I have Maiava third. Maybe there's a little bias there, but I have him third. And I actually, Madman, I have Fernando Mendoza as first in the conference. I think when you look at what he, and again, this is talking college, not that he's going to be drafted first. When you look at what he did at Cal, everything you said, and now he's in this Indiana offense.
Yes.
With they were a playoff team. You look at what that offense did with their kind of subpar quarterback play. Obviously, their quarterback was hurt sometime last year, and now he's in that. I mean, that is a huge upgrade at a position that was already performing really well in a really strong offense with a great head coach they have over there. I have Drew Aller second just because of the projection, because playing at Penn State, he gets kind of new weapons. Obviously, we know Kyron Hudson well, another receiver now at Penn State. And then I put Maiava 3, simply because of the fact that freshman of the year in the Mountain West at UNLV comes in, kind of takes his lumps, learns his time, goes 3-1, everything we've talked about, the weapons he has coming back. And then I think at 4 and 5, it can be either or. I'd put Maiava or Altmaier would be the Illinois quarterback. Either one, I take, 4A, 4B between those two. So, I'm with you. I'm looking at productivity of what they've done so far, plus some projection of who they have around them, the coach they have, the offense they play in. And I just think putting Maiava lower than guys that either haven't played yet or lower than guys that really haven't proven much more. Because again, you can't, not saying you, but you can't say that he's only played 4 games because he played an entire freshman year. Granted, is the go-go offense and a very different scheme and whatnot. Ironically, Barry Odom now is in the Big Ten at Purdue, his coach at UNLV. But I just think it will, if things go to plan, I think he absolutely is a top 3 quarterback in this conference. So we'll see.
No, I think and I love the take on Mendoza, by the way, because I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
In
Sleeping
terms
on
of
him. Everyone's sleeping on him.
No, everyone's sleeping on him because what he was able to do at Cal is remarkable. I mean, you remember this from the LA Football Show days as well. I always had sort of that Madney method, right, where I said like the top quarterbacks in the NFL are guys that take the 3 and 4 win teams in college and make them 8-win teams. It's not really the blue chip guys because they have advantages at every position. And Mendoza, I think, is set up to have that kind of a college run and have this ultimate preparation for the NFL. No, Ryan, I mean, it's sort of spot on. I think people are just, getting way too enamored, and you could say rightfully so, with the high school tapes of Julian Sayin and Underwood and, sort of bringing that to the forefront. But I think more than anything else, Ryan, it just speaks to the notoriety I think that Maiava had in his last 4 games of the highs and the lows. Because of, like, if Maiava had 4 sort of more mundane games and finish with the same record, let's say win-losses are the same, but he had kind of a little bit more of an even-keeled 4 games at USC, I actually think he'd be ranked higher on these preseason lists, around 4 or 5. Or, you got him at 3. I'd probably have him around 4 or 5 based on the productivity, but we're right there, neck and neck. But because the highs were so high and, made a SportsCenter highlight, and the lows were so low, and like we're all over talk radio and social media and whatnot, that he's become this very sort of polarizing figure. And so I think as a result of that, folks are either leaning into, well, if the bad's really bad, this thing can really sort of go down. And I think you mentioned an interesting point. Sometimes it's not about the number of mistakes, it's the timing of those mistakes. And, we sort of felt that last year, not just with Maiava, but truthfully with Miller Moss, that ultimately sort of led to the swap, right? It wasn't so much that there were mistakes. It was just like, gosh, it was like in the 4th quarter.
Brutal time.
Brutal. I mean, goal line. You're sort of in a situation, you're about to take the lead, you're about to win the game, and something happens. And so Maiava, a little bit, there was a little bit of that in his 4 games. So I think because it was such an EKG, I think he's actually gotten penalized for that. So I think that's going to be really the interesting story going into this. And I think one thing that could have helped Maiava in terms of perception earlier in the season is, hey, if there was a marquee game early that he won, a la last year's LSU, I think it could have shifted. But I think what's going to be interesting is I think this national narrative is going to hold going into October because the schedule is soft early. You got kind of the 2 cupcakes. You got a 1-win Purdue team, the 3rd game of the season. We don't really know much about Michigan State. It's really going to be that like Illinois game, that Michigan game, where it's going to be that first test. So I expect this narrative to hold most of September.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I just always laugh. I don't know, like offseason rankings obviously mean nothing. They're just like stuff for us to talk about and write about during the offseason. But I just find it funny that still like credible people will put incoming freshmen or just non-playing so high. Like there is way more Malachi Nelsons than DJ Lagways. Like it is rare that a freshman quarterback comes and balls out their freshman year. I mean, you mentioned Dante Moore. I mean, it was a pretty horrific freshman season. Now he's sat a year at Oregon. We'll see what he looks like. But the fact that all these pundits will still take these freshmen like, yep, they're going to be just great day one, right from the jump. Like this does not happen very often. It is very rare that guys like a DJ Lagway at Florida had a actual successful freshman year once he took over. So I just always find that funny. One hot take, Jamal, we'll wrap up here. All right. This is going to sound a little biased, but let me fold it out. I'm not getting ahead to saying he's going to be the first overall pick or a Heisman Trophy winner, but I do believe that Jayden Maiava has the chance to have a Cam Ward or a Jaden Daniel like ascension. Again, I'm not going to go as far as saying Heisman Trophy winner or first overall pick, but everyone remembers Cam Ward at Washington State. Now, he had a lot more tread on his tires already after being at Incarnate Ward and then at Washington State. But if he would have gone to the draft after Washington State year, he was going to be a 5th, 6th round pick, maybe undrafted. Goes to Miami, 1 year, shot in the dark, first overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner. Jaden Daniels, we saw him well. He played at Arizona State. He actually was on the Arizona State team when Keaton Slovis was still the quarterback at USC. That's how long he was in college. He was a good quarterback, did a lot of things that Jayden Maiava did, right? Like athletic, good arm, but made critical mistakes with the Sun Devils. He goes over to LSU, has a great season, Heisman Trophy, 2nd overall pick, great in the NFL. So a lot has to happen for Maiava to do that. But I think because of his skill set and because of the offense that he is in, it would not surprise me that, hey, here we are in July. Everyone's saying 6th, 7th best quarterback in the Big Ten. Maybe come November, they're like, this dude's actually pretty damn special and looked pretty good. And maybe we slept on him too much. And he had that kind of 1 year ascension that we've seen college quarterbacks have.
No, Ryan, I don't think you're wrong at all in terms of that a version of that reality unfolding here over the next, 3 months, 4 months of this season. But I think what makes it so compelling and so intriguing is I think that scenario is as equally likely as him getting benched game 9 for Hassan Longstreet. For
100%.
For a 4-4 SC team that's sort of like playing for Lincoln's job. Like that's why this is so intriguing, because if you gave me both versions, I'd probably stick the same probability on either version. And I think that's where it's going to get really fascinating with this season. So you're not wrong in any way, shape, or form, because, look, I think the best version of Maiava, if you look at his size, you look at his length, you look at the arm talent, he reminds you a lot of Colin Kaepernick, frankly. I mean, he looks that way. He sort of plays that way with the long strides. And when you sort of couple that with Lincoln Riley's IQ and his pedigree and his experience and his output at the quarterback position, look, on paper, logically, theoretically, this thing could be really, really great. But then there's also sort of another version of him where this thing could be, Hassan Longstreet is the keys to the kingdom in game 9. And I think that's what's going to make this season, I think, so fun and so sort of heart-wrenching at the same time.
No, 100%. And it's so fun when you think of Jaden Daniels and his transfer. If you remember, everyone was ready for Nussmeier to take over. They wanted Nussmeier to be the QB, and then Daniels transfers and like, we got to wait. And obviously that worked out well. So we'll see. And last thing, like you look at Lincoln Riley's like history, and we've talked about it a bunch, but with Baker Mayfield, with Kyler Murray, with Jalen Hurts, like all these guys had like that 1 or 2 year quick ascension, and obviously became 2 first overall picks and a second rounder that's now a Super Bowl champion. So I hate getting ahead of myself and saying like that's what Jayden Maiava is going to become, but certainly the blueprint is there, and he has the skill set to achieve it. Now they just got to go do it.
Yeah, just got to go do it. That's all.
Let's go do it. Easy peasy. So, all right. Well, I think that'll do it. So good stuff as always, Madman. Thank you all, Trojan family, for hanging out with us. If you have not already, please hit that like and subscribe. This is the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. And you can find us on X, LAFB Network, or at our website, LAFBnetwork.com. For the Madman, I am Ryan Dowd. Everyone be well, be safe. As always, fight on.